$600. That's the gap between the .357 lever gun the counter reaches for and the one 2 racks over that hunts every bit as well for hundreds less. I spent years behind that glass counter, and here's the part nobody back there says out loud. The expensive gun is the easy sell, so the expensive gun is the one that gets pushed. Henry, the new Ruger Marlin, maybe a Rossi if the guy's feeling generous. Same names every time, and it's the most expensive path in the store. So I'm going to rank you 5 .357 levers that hunt just as well and get walked right past at the counter by one question, the only one that should matter to you. What do you pay, and what does that money buy you? Because inside 100 yards, where this cartridge belongs, every one of these does the job. That's the floor. What you're paying for above it is iron sights, weight off your shoulder, a warranty, a smoother action, a name on the receiver. Some of that's worth real money to the right hunter. Some of it's worth $600. That's the gap between the .357 lever gun the counter reaches for and the one 2 racks over that hunts every bit as well for hundreds less. I spent years behind that glass counter, and here's the part nobody back there says out loud. The expensive gun is the easy sell, so the expensive gun is the one that gets pushed. Henry, the new Ruger Marlin, maybe a Rossi if the guy's feeling generous. Same names every time, and it's the most expensive path in the store. So I'm going to rank you 5 .357 levers that hunt just as well and get walked right past at the counter by one question, the only one that should matter to you. What do you pay, and what does that money buy you? Because inside 100 yards, where this cartridge belongs, every one of these does the job. That's the floor. What you're paying for above it is iron sights, weight off your shoulder, a warranty, a smoother action, a name on the receiver. Some of that's worth real money to the right hunter. Some of it's worth nothing to you, and rank by rank, I'll tell you which. By the end, you'll know the one to buy. The one to buy, only if you've got a specific reason. And 2 I'm going to talk you out of before you waste your money. Let's start at number 5. Number 5. The Chiappa Alaskan Takedown. But first, one quick word that applies to every gun on this list, because somebody's already typing that a .357 is a pistol round. Out of a revolver, sure, it's marginal. Out of a 16 to 20 inch rifle barrel, it wakes up. A 158 grain load picks up 300 to 600 feet per second. And inside 100 yards, it hits like a short-range .30-30. That 100 yards is the honest ceiling on a whitetail, closer if you're careful, because past it, the energy drops off a cliff. This is a timber gun, a close cover, know your distance gun, and I'll hold every rifle here to that leash. Good. Now, the Chiappa. I'm putting it at 5, dead last, for a reason that has nothing to do with quality, so hear me out. This is a purpose-built tool, and it does one thing no other gun here can touch. It breaks into 2 pieces in under 30 seconds, no tools, and drops into a backpack or a canoe or behind a truck seat. 16-inch barrel, a proper Skinner peep sight, paired with a fiber optic front, which is a genuine hunting setup, not an afterthought bolted on to hit a price. And the finish is the part most reviews skip right over. It's hard chrome, not stainless, which means it shrugs off wet brush, and weather that would freckle a stainless barrel with rust inside a season. It weighs a hair under 6 pounds. That's a full 2 pounds lighter than a lot of steel-frame levers, and after you've carried a rifle up a ridge for 6 hours, 2 pounds feels like 10. Now, let me kill a myth that follows this rifle around, because this is where doing your homework pays off. You'll hear that a takedown rifle loses its zero every time you reassemble it. On this gun, with irons, that's wrong, and here's why. Both sights sit on the barrel assembly, so when the barrel comes off and goes back on, the sights travel with it. Nothing moves relative to nothing. Guys who've torn these down and put them back together across a lot of rounds report the point of impact holds. The loses zero story comes from mounting glass on the receiver, where the scope and the barrel end up on 2 separate pieces. Mount your optic on the barrel rail instead, and even that goes away. So, the takedown holds its zero with irons. It works. Here's why it's still number 5 for most of you. It runs around $1,300 to $1,450. That is premium money. And what you're paying for, the takedown, the hard chrome, the featherweight, is capability the average deer hunter walking to a stand 200 yards from his truck does not need. But there is a hunter this rifle was built for, and if that's you, nothing else comes close. The guy flying a bush plane into a remote lake and needing a rifle that fits in the pack, not strapped to the outside snagging every branch. The hunter working wet coastal country or salt marsh, where a blued barrel starts freckling with rust by the end of a season and the hard chrome just shrugs it off. The horseback hunter, the canoe hunter, the man who wants a truck gun that lives behind the seat and fits there without a fight. For that hunter, the Alaskan earns every dollar, and I'd rank it near the top. For everybody else, you're buying a specialist's tool for a generalist's hunt. Right gun, wrong buyer. That's what lands it at 5. Number 4, a Winchester lever in .357, and I mean the current Moroku-built guns, the 1873 and the Model 94. This one hurts to rank, because the quality is not in question. These are beautifully made rifles. The Japanese Moroku plant builds them to a standard that makes you understand why people get misty about lever guns in the first place. Fit, finish, the way the action feels, it's all there. And in the .357 conversation specifically, they get ignored, because everyone's arguing Henry versus Marlin and forgets Winchester still makes these. Quick note, if you go looking, because the two models handle differently. The 1873 is the classic top-eject cowboy gun, which means it throws brass straight up and you're running iron sights. No low-mounted scope. The Model 94 side ejects, so you can drop glass right over the bore if your eyes want it. Same cartridge, same quality, 2 different rifles depending on whether you shoot irons or want an optic. Pick accordingly, so why only 4? Same problem as the Chiappa from the other direction. You're paying $1,300 and up for craftsmanship and a heritage name, and craftsmanship, remember, isn't where the work gets done in the field. It's finish, it's fit, it's the pride of owning one. It's a gorgeous rifle that will outlive you, and if you want a lever gun, you'll be proud to hand down a generation. This is a real answer, and I won't talk you out of it. But as a working deer rifle judged on dollars against what it puts in the freezer, you are paying a collector's premium for a hunter's job. It earns 4 on the strength of what it is. It loses the top spots on what it costs to do a job that guns half its price do just as well. And here's a backdoor on the Winchester price, if the name matters to you, but the sticker doesn't. Winchester built plenty of older Model 94s and trails and guns in .357 over the years, and they turn up used at a fraction of a new Moroku, often well under $1,000. Same top eject character, same close cover manners, decades of proven service. It's the same used market gamble I'll walk you through on the next pick, so check the bore and the lockup before you hand over cash. But if you want a Winchester in this caliber and you don't need the current production shine, the used rack is where the value hides. Number 3, and this is the one I'd tell my own brother to hunt for, a used Marlin 1894 with the JM stamp. Now, this isn't a .357 only pick. The same rifle in .30-30 is legendary, but the 1894 and .357 is the sleeper. JM stamp means it was built in the original Marlin plant, before the Remington era that gave the brand its rough patch. Ask any old hand, and they'll tell you the same thing. These are workhorses. The 1894 was built around the shorter pistol cartridge from the start, so the action is trim, light, and fast, and it feeds .357 the way it was meant to. One viewer put it better than I could, talking about his grandfather-in-law's Marlin out of a Sears catalog decades ago, accurate as anything he'd ever owned from 50 to 200 yards, rain, mud, snow, ice, and he handed it to his son with real reluctance because he was going to miss it. That's not marketing. That's a rifle that earned a place in a family. You can find clean ones around $700, sometimes into the low 4 figures, if the JM cachet has been bid up. So why is a $700 rifle only number 3 when the whole video is about value? Because I can't reliably tell you to go buy one. It's a used market hunt. Supply is a gun show lottery. Condition is a gamble unless you know what you're looking at, and there's no warranty when you're done. If you find a clean JM at a fair price, grab it and don't look back. It might be the best hunting rifle on this entire list. But I can't rank a thing you might not be able to find above a thing you can walk in and buy today. That's the only reason it isn't higher. And since you're buying used, let me give you the 30 seconds that saves you from a lemon, because this is exactly the stuff nobody tells a first-time buyer. The stamp you're looking for is a small JM in a circle or oval, usually right ahead of the trigger on the barrel. That's the original North Haven Marlin. When you've got it in your hands, work the lever slow and feel for grit or a hitch. That's a rifle somebody ran hard or never cleaned. Look down the bore for sharp, bright rifling, not a gray frosted mirror. Close the action and check the lockup has no play front to back. And thumb a couple of dummy rounds through the gate to make sure it feeds without hanging up, because the older Marlins in 357 can be finicky feeding the shorter 38 specials. A clean one that passes all four is a buy-it-on-the-spot rifle. A rough one is somebody else's project, and you let them keep it. Quick gut check before the top two. If you're getting value out of this, if I've saved you from one bad four-figure mistake, that subscribe button is right there and it costs you nothing. These breakdowns take real work, and I need to know you're out there. Back to it. Number 2. The Smith & Wesson 1854 in 357. And right away, I have to clean up two things that get repeated about this gun because they matter to what you'd pay. First, the rumor that Smith & Wesson farms these out to Rossi. It doesn't hold up. Smith & Wesson builds the 1854 in-house in Tennessee on their own line. It is an American-made rifle, full stop, and anybody telling you it's a rebadged import hasn't checked. Second, the price. You'll hear people quote $750 to $850 for this gun. That is not real. Walk into a shop and you're looking at $1,100 to well over $1,300 depending on the version, and buyers all over the country will tell you the same. There's even a tricked out variant that runs past $3,000. So price it, honestly, before you fall in love. Now, why is it worth a look at that money, and why number 2? Because of what comes in the box. A factory fiber optic front sight and a fully adjustable rear. You're getting better iron sights out of the box than levers that cost more. And if you've hunted with irons in low light, you know that a bright front bead in the last 20 minutes of legal shooting light is worth more than any spec on the box. That's the window most deer get taken in, and cheap sights cost you the shot. It uses a Marlin pattern parts and accessory footprint, which is a bigger deal than it sounds, because it means the huge world of Marlin 1894 aftermarket sights, levers, mounts, slings, largely bolts right on. You are not locked into one company's catalog at one company's prices. The fit and finish are tight. The American warranty is behind it, and by more than one account, it's been one of the best-selling levers on the market the last couple of years, which is the market quietly telling you the same thing I am. It's a lot of rifle. It is not, however, a value champion, because you're paying premium dollars for it. It's number 2 because it's the best gun on this list. You can buy brand new, work straight out of the box, and hunt with for the rest of your life without touching a thing. If your money's there and you never want to fiddle, this is your rifle. And that brings us to number 1. Before I say it, let me square up with the baseline because I'm about to hand the crown to a budget gun and I owe the famous names their due. The Henry Big Boy earns its price with a lifetime warranty and American build. The new Ruger Marlin might be the best built lever gun on the market right now, and when it sells above sticker, that's real demand for a rifle that deserves it. Buy either one and you bought a fine gun. You just paid full retail for what you could have gotten cheaper. Hold that thought, because it's the whole reason for what comes next. And there's something else you already feel if you hunt these guns. Ammo is expensive right now. .357, .44, all of it. I read the same comments you do, guys who love these rifles saying they can barely afford to feed them anymore, that an afternoon at the range costs what a box used to cost for a case. That's real, and I'm not going to pretend it isn't. But sit with what that means for this decision. The rifle is a one-time cost. The ammo is forever. Every dollar you sink into a prettier receiver or a name on the side is a dollar you're not spending on the thing you'll actually burn through for the next 20 years, which is exactly why my number 1 is what it is. Number 1 is the Rossi R92, bought new, around $550 to $680, depending on the day and the finish. And I want to be careful here, because you picked up on the rule already. Number 1 isn't cheapest wins. I'm not handing this to Rossi because it's the least expensive and calling it a day. It's number 1 because when you weigh what you pay against what you get, and against the fact that you can walk into almost any shop in the country and actually buy one, nothing else on this list touches the ratio. The R92 runs the 1892 Browning action, one of the strongest, slickest lever designs ever drawn up, the same basic guts people pay Winchester and Browning prices for. It handles the same cartridge, it clears the same floor inside 100 yards, and it does it running one of the best lever actions ever put in a hunter's hands. For the straight wall zone hunter on a budget who just wants a rifle that works, this is the answer, and it leaves $500–600 in your pocket for the ammo you'll actually shoot. And if straight wall zone doesn't mean anything to you, this is where it pays off. A whole list of states, mostly across the Midwest and Great Lakes, have deer zones where you cannot legally use a 30-30, but you can use a 357 lever. Some of them draw an actual line across the map and flip the rules above and below it. In that country, this isn't a novelty rifle, it's the rifle. This is not legal advice, and I'm not your game warden, so check your own regulations before you buy, because that rule shifts county by county and changes often. Load it with the same 357 your revolver takes, and you're feeding one cartridge across your rifle and your sidearm, both. And here's the part that closes the loop on that ammo problem I raised a minute ago. This rifle, like every 357 lever on the list, will happily run 38 special. Same gun, cheaper, softer round, so you can practice all afternoon for a fraction of what full Magnum costs, then load the hot stuff when it's time to hunt. You cannot make ammo cheaper, but you can buy a rifle that lets you shoot the cheap stuff to stay sharp and save the expensive stuff for the woods. That's a value nobody at the counter puts a number on, and on a budget, it's the whole ballgame. Now, the honest part, because number one doesn't mean flawless, some of the newer R92s come a little rough from the factory. The bolt-mounted safety is a clunky, unloved thing. Customer service and factory parts can be hit or miss. But here's what nobody at the counter tells you. There's a well-known smith, Steve's Guns, with a slick-up video and a parts kit built exactly for this rifle. A spring kit runs about $30. An afternoon of work smooths the action out, and there's a peep sight that replaces that ugly safety outright. Owners who've done it will tell you it turns a rough $600 rifle into something that runs like a gun costing twice as much. That's the trade-off, laid bare. You might spend $30 in an afternoon. You're still starting $600 ahead. And to be fair, plenty of the newer ones run fine straight out of the box, and the loading gate that used to cut your thumb has gotten better in recent production. If you're not a tinkerer, buy one, shoot it, and only send it out for a slick-up if it bugs you. The point is that the fix is cheap, known, and a weekend at most, not a deal breaker. Try getting a $1,200 rifle down to $6 by doing some work. It doesn't run the other direction. You'll also hear that the old pre-safety Rossis, the ones from before they added the crossbolt, have better steel and tighter quality. Let me be straight about that, because it's exactly the kind of thing that gets repeated until it sounds like fact. The metallurgy claim is community sentiment, not something I can show you on paper, and the evidence cuts the other way, with a lot of owners saying the newer guns are built better than the old ones. What the old no-safety guns genuinely have going for them is the missing safety and a devoted following, and yes, a clean old one can be a gem. But don't overpay chasing a metallurgy story nobody's proven. The new gun, tuned, is the smart money. One more thing that tips this rifle over the top, and it's the reason I put one in the hands of new hunters more than anything else on this list. The recoil is nothing. A 357 out of a 6-pound-plus carbine is a soft, flat little push, not the shoulder thump of a 30-30 or a slug gun. That's not a small thing. It's the difference between a kid or a smaller-framed hunter flinching on every shot and a kid who begs to go back to the range next weekend. Drop down to light 38 wad cutters, and the recoil is barely more than a 22, which is how you build a new shooter's confidence before they ever touch a Magnum. I've watched people who couldn't run a hard-kicking rifle shoot an R92 all afternoon with a grin. A gun you enjoy shooting is a gun you practice with, and a gun you practice with is the one that fills the freezer. Cheap to buy, soft to shoot, cheap to feed. That's the whole case. So, there's your ranking. And now, the part I promised. 2 guns you're going to see, talked up as 357 sleepers, that I'm going to steer you away from before you spend the money, because I've watched people get burned on both. The first is the pump-action Timberwolf. It's a discontinued range gun with a cult following, and there were only a few thousand ever imported. You'll pay closer to $2,000 for one if you find one, with no part support and no warranty. That's a collector's curiosity. It is not a deer rifle you can lean on when it counts, and a rifle you can't get parts for is a rifle that's one broken spring away from a wall hanger. The second one gets dressed up as the ultimate sleeper, and it's the one that costs people real money. It's a custom Browning BLR, rechambered to 357 maximum. 2 problems. First, 357 maximum isn't 357 Magnum, and the whole build runs you $2,500 to $3,000 once you've bought a donor rifle and paid a gunsmith. That's not a hunting rifle, that's a dare. Second, the people who actually run these actions will tell you the conversion is shaky, that the rimmed cartridges hang up on each other in a box magazine that was never shaped for them. So somebody's asking you to spend $3 grand on a build that might not even feed reliably, to do a job a $600 rifle does without complaint. When the pitch is all spec sheet and no field, keep your wallet in your pocket. So let's bring it home, $600. That's still the number, and now you know exactly what it buys. Iron, weight, a warranty, a name. Sometimes worth every penny, sometimes worth nothing to the guy you are, and I've told you rank by rank which is which. The counter's never going to lay it out for you like that, because the counter's job is to move the rifle that's on the shelf. Your job is to know the difference before you hand over the card. If you want the specialist tool for the backcountry, the Chiappa's waiting. If you want a rifle to hand your kid someday, the Winchester or a clean JM Marlin will do you proud. If you've got the money and never want to touch a thing, buy the Smith. But if you're like most of us, if you want a rifle that clears the floor, works, pairs with your revolver, and leaves cash in your pocket for the ammo you'll actually shoot, buy the Rossi and spend the difference on range time. That's not the cheap answer. That's the smart one. So let me ask you, because I know you're out there and I read every one of these, what's the straight wall or pistol cartridge rule where you hunt, and which of these are you carrying into the woods this season? Drop it in the comments. And if you want the honest breakdown on what a rangefinder's advertised numbers really mean before you trust one on that 100-yard leash, that one's up next. I'll see you there.